We don't even read, so even though enthusiastic about religion, we don't even read our Bible. No, you find it everywhere in the house, on the table, in the living room, in the back room. Read it. That's what, you don't have to read the Bible to be a Christian. Of course, but if you can read, you're a Christian. You don't read it, you're a stupid Christian. Africa's contributions to Christianity are outstanding, overwhelming. I mean, the first country, Genesis 2, verse 13, is Ethiopia. Your version of the Bible, we have it as Cush. C-U-S-H or K-U-S-H, it's the same name for Ethiopia. When Jesus Christ was in trouble, peace be upon his name, it was Africa that protected him, nowhere else in the world. It was Africa where he grew up as a youth. Of course, these are facts. I mean, it's all there for you to see. But anyway, it's your history, you should know it. Africa saved Islam for the world. When the Prophet Muhammad was being hounded by the feudal lords of Mecca, the disciples found refuge in Africa, where they were kept guarded until the Prophet, peace be upon his name, was called to Medina, and the Ethiopians conducted the disciples to rejoin him there, where once having rejoined him, they spread Islam rapidly throughout the world. We have just in passing given you some of Africa's relationships to world religions. We haven't spoken about African religions itself, which are inside of Africa. We've spoken of those which had an effect on world civilization, such as monotheism, belief in one God, which Africa gave to the world, Judaism, which Africa gave to the world, Christianity, which Africa stabilized for the world, and Islam, which Africa saved for the world at time of danger. Mikhail Aflaq, the leader of the Ba'ath Party, Mikhail Aflaq, you ought to read. Leader of the Ba'ath Party, that's the party of Saddam Hussein. He points out, and he's a profound writer, profound thinker, and a profound revolutionary activist. He points out that Europe has never produced any universal religions, not one. All the religions entered Europe from the outside. In the case of Christianity, it took 400 years, that's 4 centuries, after the death of Jesus Christ, for Christianity to stabilize itself in Europe. So you can just look and see, and if you will look at the history of Africa and the history of Europe in relationships to religious intolerance, you will find that Africa is dominantly tolerant of religious indifferences, and Europe is dominantly intolerant of religious differences. In Europe, they burn you at the stake if you're a Jew, if you're a Christian, if you're a Muslim, if you're a non-believer. As a matter of fact, even as late as the 14th and 15th century, many of the Europeans who fled to this country were fleeing religious persecution. So you must understand the long history, and if you just take a look at Europe's history, you will see even most of her class struggles were covered with histories of religious, and make you think it's a religious warfare. Even today, some people really think the struggle in Northern Ireland is a struggle between Protestants and Catholics, and not the real issue, British imperialism occupying the land of the Irish people for over 800 years. Thus, the relationship of culture and religion in Africa and Europe must be definitely different. We give some examples in direct relationships to our struggle for socialism, which we repeat is a universal truth and cannot be given by anyone. European revolutionaries have made errors just like everybody. Of course, one of the errors they make is in this era of racism. One of the reasons for it is that because of Europe's dominant position of power, we want to repeat the words so people don't get carried away and think that we have any other solution except one, to get power. The only reason Europe dominates us is not because they think they're white supremacists, because they have the power to do it. And our only problem is that we don't have the power. I don't care what a white man thinks. I don't care how supremacist he is. He ain't got no problem with me. If a white man wants to lynch me, that's his problem. If he got the power to lynch me, that's my problem. So, I know my problem. So my problem at this stage in human development is not to try and treat him and his white supremacy. My problem at this stage in human development is to find enough power to stop him from whatever he wants to do to my people. After we have the power and we arrive at the power, then we can begin to treat him as a psychiatrist or psychologist. But until we get power and stop him, we're wasting time tripping off, trying to psychoanalysis him and this and that. We need power, because the only reason we oppress is because we lack power. If you will look, Europe has this tendency, because of its power position accrued, of course, illegally, racist, immorally, etc., to make it appear as if things which are particular to Europe is universal to the world. So much so, as a matter of fact, if you look at history and you don't do proper research on it, you come to think that nothing happens until the white man comes along. Like in America, they say Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492. I know some of us who are conscious say it's not true, but very few of us who are conscious, knowing it's not true, look at the history of America before 1492. So you must not think it doesn't have an effect upon you. You just shake it off. No. If you say Columbus did not discover America before 1492, then you have a responsibility to know about this country before 1492. And when you do, you'll have a great respect for the Indians. I mean serious respect for them. Because even if you go back before 1492, you got to go to slavery. And if you do even anything in slavery, you will know that we Africans must be eternally grateful to the indigenous people of this country. Because when the white people were making this a hunting ground for slaves, the only sanctuary we could find was on the Indian reservation. So all of these concepts are made to fight you. That's why your culture has to be important. You must know your culture. And the only way you can know your culture is by having a proper comprehension of your history. Thus, unless you know your history, you cannot talk about your culture. But merely knowing your history doesn't mean you know your culture. Because your history can be given to you by your enemy. And depending on how it's taken from you, you can become confused. I mean, I give examples all the time. I said, and I know, that the Africans in this country smashed chattel slavery. I know we did it. Now, every way they present it, it won't look that way. Now, I'm not even going to argue with the analysis. I'm just going to give you cold facts. The Civil War started in 1861. Abraham Lincoln did not sign the Emancipation Proclamation until 1863, 2 years after the war began. Why? Because the North was losing the war. That's the only reason why. If the war was fought over the question of slavery, in 1861, when the first bullet was fired, every slave would have been freed. But he had no intentions of freeing the slaves. I know they tell you he's a great white father. I understand that. I understand. It's supposed to, because, we can't do nothing ourselves. Everything's done for us by a great white father. So in our history, we have nothing but great white fathers. Even now, they want to make the clerk a great white father. I mean, they don't stop anywhere, these people. They really. Yeah. So, Lincoln started a fight. When he freed the slaves in 1863, dig this, he didn't let them pick up guns. Frederick Douglass wore his feet out, going to the White House begging Lincoln to let the slaves pick up the gun. But Lincoln refused. He didn't let the slaves pick up the gun until 1864. And when we picked up the gun, this war, which started in 1861, was ended in 9 months. 9 months. Now, if you don't think the slaves did it, you must be crazy. But I know my people. You give me a gun to get Mr. Charles, who's been whooping my mama before me, get me that gun. As a matter of fact, the white South knew who won the war. That's why after the Hayes-Chilton Compromise, they did everything to disarm the Africans and write terrorist groups against any one of us who were armed. That's where your Ku Klux Klan started, because they knew that these Africans given guns on even Stephen, we got them hands down. This is our people's culture, so me, I know it. That's why when people talk nonsense, I'm never pessimistic. These Africans, what they've been through with nothing and got as far as they got to, nothing gonna stop them from where they got to go. We're speaking about culture and of Pan-Africanism, so we said if you look at both continents, you will see the relationship to religion is different. Thus, Marxism-Leninism can say, as Marx and Engels say in the Communist Manifesto, that religion is the opium of the masses. He's correct for Europe. Because we said every religion enters Europe from the outside, and Europe now tries to control this religion, to nationalize it, and make it look as if it belongs to them. I mean, when you hear people talking about Christianity, you think it came out of Europe. I mean, you really think it came out of Europe. You think Europe was the breeding ground for it, rather than the continent that tried most to destroy Christianity. I mean, these are just historical facts.